Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to the Freedom and Wealth Podcast. This is your host, Brian Nicolason. Today is Friday, March 6th. Um, thank God it's Friday. I'm looking forward to a weekend here. It has been a incredible 3 weeks in the market. Been a lot of events, a lot of things going on. And, specifically with the Iran war now, I guess the 2026 Iran war, different from the 2025 12-day Iran war. During this first 7 days, I think everybody's been a bit on the edge of their seat, looking at the markets, trying to figure out, what's going to happen next. So I want to do a little review, kind of touch on what we've seen in the markets, what our predictions are, as again we go through this conflict, and then talk about some of the very significant developments in technology and artificial intelligence, which, as we've been saying, has been the story of 2026 and the story of the decade. All right, again, 7 days into the 2026 Iran war, we've got this Operation Epic Fury. What a name. Between Israel and the United States, we've now, I think, done 2,000 airstrikes on Iran. First, it was going against the leadership. They did take out, probably going to pronounce this guy's name wrong, the supreme leader, right? Khamenei, I believe you say it. But, he's been taken out. And then it was the air defense. First, it was air defense and leadership. And now we've really moved into the defense industry. So we're bombing, drone factories and ammunitions factories, and even a drone carrier ship. I think we've sunk 30 Iranian vessels. We are just, unleashing epic fury. I guess the word does fit. That's what's going on. I mean, I do have to maybe take a little credit, and anybody, we have to give their credit. Back in 2025 during the 12-day war, everybody that was saying, hey, this Iran thing's not over. It was not over after 12 days of bombing nuclear facilities. We were right. It wasn't over. And I think that, uh, as the saying goes, the first casualty of war is the truth. I think that's very true. We don't know what's really going on. There must be something going on that we don't know. Maybe they were much closer to a nuclear weapon than anybody thinks. Certainly, if you look at, Tulsi Gabbard's report, she said they were nowhere near a nuclear weapon. But maybe there's some additional information that is causing us to do this. And it's terrible, right? You're seeing, that school get bombed, 160 children die. I was picking up some supplies at the store today. We're doing a bit of project on my house, so I was picking up some supplies, and on the TV there was you know, news. The two servicemen had died in an attack in, I think it was Kuwait. But it's terrible, right? We're seeing just carnage across the Middle East, and you hate to see that, but I guess you could hope that it's for a greater purpose. And if they were about to get a nuclear weapon, then this is totally justified. We have to do it. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But not really here to comment on that or any of that. We're here to comment on what's going on with the markets and how the markets are dealing with this uncertainty geopolitically. The main part of the economy being affected currently is the oil industry, right? You've got oil now up, I believe $85 a barrel now. I have to look back at it, but it was 72 a barrel. So have you seen this pick up in the price of oil? Because of our attacks on Iranian shipping or vessels, military vessels, they've attacked some ships in the Strait of Hormuz, and now they've effectively shut that down. They said that that's shut down. And some reports are saying up to 95% of shipping vessels are no longer going through that. So we're seeing a 95% slowdown. That's probably not totally accurate because a lot of the ships have just turned their transponders off. But again, no matter what, whether it's 95% or 80%, there's a significant decrease in shipping volume through the Strait of Hormuz. So that is, pure. The oil getting shipped from the Middle East has now slowed. Part of the reason why the ships aren't doing it, by the way, is Lloyd's of London has pulled out from the reinsurance market So the cost of shipping from an insurance perspective has ballooned, and so the ships are no longer willing to do that and take on that expense. Um, what happens essentially is you're seeing this reduction in supply of crude oil, and you're seeing actually a higher spike in the price of the refined products because that is basically driving up to create the demand destruction needed to keep the supply in check. And that'll go on, in the short term, and then eventually that'll feed through to the price of oil, and you could see triple digit oil prices, which would be a significant rise. The US is stepping in with liquidity for the insurance companies. So they're trying to encourage, the reinsurance market to get back into the market to insure these ships. They're also going to release some oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. So they're taking some steps to make sure that oil doesn't spike too much. Um, and that's a good thing. If essentially what we're thinking is that, if this conflict does continue for a long period of time, these steps of the petroleum reserve and trying to provide some liquidity to the insurance industry, those steps are going to run their course, and we'll see that classical oil spike. Again, we're seeing it already. We'll probably see that if we don't see a resolution to this conflict by the end of March. We'll probably see a more significant pickup in the price of oil, which again, bigger effect on the refined product pricing. So gas is up 26 cents. That could be up, $1.26 by the time we're in April and May if this has not been resolved. But I guess the thing we have to look at is and understand is that Trump has the unilateral ability to end this conflict. Right, he could end it tomorrow if he wants to. Um, Things are complicated because he is saying that he'll accept nothing but unconditional surrender. So maybe that's where Iran has to get to before he can stop this thing. But we do hope that we could find a resolution sooner rather than later. Maybe it's not a full regime change, but regime adjustment. So anyway, that's the hope. Meanwhile, what's going on as oil is rising? You've got the Fed out there, which is kind of in the periphery of the economic outlook. They're coming out, multiple, members of the board coming out and saying, okay, maybe we're not going to cut 3 times, we're going to cut 2 times. So they're looking at this transitory oil spike, essentially, because there's no reason to believe that this is going to be some prolonged war. I do believe that Trump likes to get in and get out. So if that's the case, and we're looking at some transitory pop in oil prices, why are we talking about making policy change to become more restrictive? It reeks of 2008. We had a oil spike in March of 2008, and the Fed recalibrated their entire process and took rate cuts off the table, and that pushed us right further into and faster into the 2008 credit crisis. Um, we see that going on now, and we think that's a policy mistake. If the Fed does do that, if they actually do take these cuts off the table that are priced in, that is not great, and that's again that's it doesn't make any sense because it's transitory inflation. It's like I said, it's an oil spike based on just the Strait of Hormuz being shut. So the idea that we're gonna totally tighten our rate policy because of that seems like a mistake, and it's creating excess volatility that's not necessary in the rate markets. We're seeing the 10-year um, pop up and kind of flattening the curve, and we just think that's not necessary. So, but when you look at the overall market, you look at the S&P 500 or you look at the Nasdaq, even these indexes are within a few percentage points of the all-time high. Part of the reason is they have this significant exposure to technology, and technology has been resilient in this Iranian war the last 7 days. Partially because technology really is not as dependent on oil prices. So, the investors kind of see the technology industry kind of separate and not impacted by the supply issues that this Iranian war is causing. That's one reason. The other reason is this significant development we've had in AI, um, and agentic AI, which we're going to talk about in just a second. But again, going back to the market and how it's dealing with this, we've seen some volatility, some ups and downs during this last 7 days, but overall, been incredibly resilient. We think technology has a big part to play there. But now, we got another part to the story, which is a dismal jobs report got published today. So in February, the United States economy lost 92,000 jobs. That is the first contraction since the pandemic. So this is cautionary hiring. You could blame it on the tariffs. You could blame it on economic uncertainty. You could blame it on AI. But at the end of the day, we're starting to see those job losses, unemployment rising from 3.4 to 3.7. These are significant developments, things that we do have to be aware of. And, we do think that is important. We've been talking about this soft landing and this idea that, you want to see some benign weakness in the labor market. That'll give the Fed the cover to cut. And we're starting to see that again. Oil prices spiking now, putting a monkey wrench in it, when in reality, they need to be focused on the job market and they need to be supportive at this point if they want to keep the economy rolling forward. But again, a lot of developments coming on AI and productivity gains and how that's going to affect the labor market. So a lot to talk about there. The biggest story, all right, again, the Iranian war, even though it's a huge story geopolitically, it's a huge story in our, U.S. news cycle. It really hasn't affected the market all that much. The market has been, some of the more cyclical parts of the market, airlines, things like that, or some of the, you know, uh, defense companies doing really well, airline companies doing really poorly, some of the energy companies doing well, again, on rising oil prices. That's just on the periphery because those industries really don't make up that all that much of the market. Um, and so even though some of that's been falling apart and, ups and downs and volatility, we've seen this rebound on the technology part of the economy and the stock market. And that's uh, really, I would say, significantly due to OpenClaw, which is a agentic AI system platform that's been released a couple weeks ago. It's open source. Anybody can use it, and we're actually using it within our business. We've started playing around with it. One of our team members spent weeks putting it together and putting together an AI bot that is an agent. It's a digital worker, and it now works for him. So he can call this AI agent up on a phone. He's got his own phone number. He's got his own email. He can either email him, he can call him, and the AI bot can talk to him just like a human, just like a worker, can do anything that he needs him to do. There are some parameters that you have to deal with being that it's a digital worker versus a real worker, but it doesn't get sick, it doesn't take vacations, and it works 24/7, and it's got an infinite memory, and it learns every day about you, and it becomes a worker, again, the best worker you could ever hire. It doesn't complain, and it just works, right? 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That is the future of AI. This is the promise that AI has had with chat bots, right? The original ChatGPT chatbot was the first rendition of artificial intelligence and what is coming down the pipeline. And agentic AI, right? An artificial intelligence bot that is a person, that is an agent that can do, multiple tasks, and kind of reason for itself and get things done for you and take workload off of you. That is the future. And OpenClaw and its release has sparked total just madness in the tech world, as we're starting to learn that this is real and that this is the most productive employee you could ever hire, and is not a real employee. And that is changing the paradigm and the way we think about technology and AI and its development, and you see Nvidia just when people started to get concerned about, hey, is this capex worth it? Is AI real? We get the release of this OpenClaw agentic AI, and right follow behind that is an incredible earnings report from Nvidia, and we are now back in the trade, right, where we now Nvidia is now going back up, close to its all-time high, and again the market is now saying this capex is real, this capex is needed. We need to build the compute to support the agentic AI. This is that next step, and again we're playing with it ourselves. It's been incredibly powerful. I was on a phone call, on a Zoom call actually, with the AI digital worker, and we were having a great conversation. We're talking about some different business ideas. He had some great input. I couldn't tell, you could not tell me that was not a human, except for at the end, he regurgitated everything in this great summary and, emailed me the summary of our phone call and logged it into the system for us so that if we ever need to go back, and by the way, he's got infinite memory, so he'll remember everything we talked about and he'll be able to recall that and keep growing as a worker and become more and more intelligent and really more and more refined in what he does. And this is, again, this digital worker is the future, this agentic AI, and it has sparked an incredible run in the tech sector. So as we look at our portfolio, we are just so bullish on this. We do think, yes, there's some concern that the Iranian war can escalate and spiral, and we can see massive turmoil in the markets across all the sectors. By the way, if that happens, we have the 200-day moving average, which we will de-risk equity exposure on, fairly close to where we are now. So we've seen some consolidation. We do think that a resolution in Iran, and maybe just this, how powerful this AI story is, can take the market to that next level. We do think that's probably the next move is up. But if not, we'll make sure we're de-risking and protecting our clients at this point, given the turmoil on the 200-day moving average. So we'll keep you posted on where we are with our risk management process. But in the meantime, we'll be back next week with another episode, further updates on the rate markets, the job market, the Iranian war, and the biggest story of the decade, artificial intelligence, robotics, and agentic AI. Thank you all for tuning in. Short update for a Friday. Hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. Please give us a call with any questions, and we'll talk soon.